Welcome to the Oddballs podcast, where today we are exploring the world of sumo wrestling.
Oh, fantastic.
Joe, tell me what you know about sumo wrestling.
I know it is from Japan.
True.
I know they are big, hefty boys. That is about it.
Okay. Surely you have some knowledge about a general idea of how the game works.
I think so. It is sort of a form of wrestling, as I guess
Yeah.
you spoke about sumo wrestling. I think that there's like a big circle, and you basically have to push someone out of it.
Pretty much it. Yeah. It's a simple sport, we will say.
Okay.
We'll go into a bit of the intricacies of how it works and how you actually win your matches with the different techniques you might use a little bit later. But in short, there are two ways to win a bout. You have the two wrestlers in the ring, and you can win the bout by either pushing your opponent out of the ring. You can carry him across with momentum, and he will just be the first person out.
Okay.
You don't have to remain in the ring as he goes out. Or if you can get the opponent to touch the ground with any part of his body besides his feet.
Okay.
So knees, hand, flatten him onto his back. That'll do the trick.
Okay. And it's just one and done. It's not a point scoring system. You don't have to do it.
One and done. About is one and done. You don't do multiple rounds of it. Once the bout is completed, that'd be you done for the day.
Okay.
And you might have a bout the next day, depending on what level
Nice
you're
and
at
simple.
and where you are in kind of the tournament. We'll talk about all that later. I think a good place to start with sumo is understanding the history of it. Its history is rooted in Shinto religion legend, kind of mythology, and basically what transpired in Shinto legend is that there was a heavenly deity called Takamikazuchi, and he came down to what they called the Middle Country, which was, let's say, Earth as we know it. Okay. And he was sent as a representative of the heavenly deities to assert their dominance and their power, their control over the Middle Country. Okay. So he comes down from the heavenly realm into Middle Country, and he is met by a representative of the earthly deities. So still a deity.
Okay.
Not a man. Still a supernatural power, but
Based on Earth. Based in the Middle Country.
Yes. He is met by one of their representatives called Takamina Kata, who was sent as he wasn't kind of sent as tribute. When Takamikazuchi came down from the heavenly realm, most of the earthly deities decided, let them be. They can take control. We'll bend the knee, no problem. And Takamina Kata said, well, surely we'll at least see how strong this guy is before we just bend over backwards and let him take over.
We'll have a look.
Of course we'll have a look. So then what happens is they engage in a wrestling match, pretty much on the southwestern shores of Japan today, and this fantastic match, which was basically a bout of brute strength, and it went on for hours.
A titanic struggle.
Exactly, between Takamikazuchi and Takamina Kata, is said to be the first sumo wrestling match. Takamina Kata eventually loses, unfortunately. So the rest of the earthly deities were onto something. And Takamikazuchi, on behalf of their heavenly deities, then assert their control and dominance over Middle Country. And these are deities, both heavenly and earthly, that are still part of the Shinto religion and faith to this day.
The earthly deities still, I mean, presumably they're not still kicking around on Earth. Do they go up to the heavens at any point, or?
Unless you've seen them any time recently, I presume they must have.
Okay, yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm not the
Shinto expert.
I haven't quite nailed down the Shinto religion in my research for this, but I haven't seen them running around anytime recently.
Okay, neither have I.
So I presume they have gone elsewhere. The present-day imperial family in Japan is said to be direct descendants of Taka Mikazuchi, the guy who came down from...
Oh, the heavenly deity.
Heavenly, yeah.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
That's when he kind of like asserted himself, and I think he is like with the god of thunder type character. We won't go into too much detail about
Japanese Thor.
Japanese Thor, let's call him that. Okay, so that's said to be the first sumo match that ever transpired. Then the oldest records we have of sumo happening between humans comes from about the 8th century, and it was typically used as a religious ceremony, kind of at the start often of a harvest or any kind of important season or event that the Japanese were hosting. They would often have sumo wrestling, and it was a way to honor the gods, to show their appreciation. And as a result of that, because of the strong link that it has to kind of the spiritual side of it, there are a lot of traditions and rituals that remain in the sport that connected quite closely to the Shinto faith. So it starts out as a kind of a ceremonial thing, but when I say ceremonial, it wasn't a fake match. These people were having real fights, and often they were not very there were no clear guidelines on how these fights should be conducted. They were pretty brutal, and oftentimes people would die in performing these rituals.
Yeah, I mean, I think like gladiatorial combat was also had a ritual element to it, but you still, I mean, you have to have a go, otherwise it's not a very good ritual to this titanic struggle, is it?
No, probably not. You can't really, you can't fake it till you make it, because the other guys certainly won't. So those are the first records we have of sumo in this kind of ceremonial aspect. Then a little bit later on in Japanese culture, we're looking at kind of the 1200s to the 1500s. Feudal lords in Japan started using sumo as a way to train up their soldiers and keep them fit when they weren't actually at battle. And then so they would have started training together in the same kind of camps, fighting against one another, and then people started, and then the feudal lords, obviously, I'm sure they have a council meeting every now and then, a quarterly meetup, and then the one guy says, "Oh, my fight is better than yours." So what do? Arrange a match, subsequently arrange tournaments, and this is the birth of the more formal tournament structure that sumo grew into today.
This is presumably a similar time to samurai.
I think so.
It's sort of the shogunate period.
Yeah.
And but it's obviously very different. Your sumo wrestlers are very different body type to a samurai.
But I think the sumo that they would have been wrestling then would not have been the body types that we know now.
Okay.
They would have been soldiers, warriors.
Yeah.
Very athletically built.
Okay. So still the same rules, but just they hadn't worked out the.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't meant as it wasn't the be all and end all.
Okay.
These guys existed to serve a higher purpose, which was to go to battle and fight well. And if you were the size of some of the sumo wrestlers these days, you wouldn't make it to the battlefield.
Yeah, it's the same as the whole history of amateur sport. They were all coal miners and factory workers who played football on the side or rugby on the side. They weren't professional athletes.
Yeah. So it's kind of developed from that, and as it became more formal, as one guy said, "Oh well, we've got a guy who'll fight better than your guy," then they started kind of doctoring them a little bit, saying, okay. You may be not going to get sent to battle so often. Instead, we're going to make sure you're very good at this so that I win my side bet with the feudal lord from next door. Okay, so
slowly professionalizing. Again, in a similar way to football, the certain factory workers didn't have to work as much, maybe didn't have to work on Saturdays so that they're able to play.
Yeah. Interesting comparison. So that is kind of the birth of sumo and how it formalized and kind of found its place in Japanese in Japanese culture. And today, what we see is a organization called the Japan Sumo Association.
Okay.
And they oversee a professional sport that has 6 major tournaments a year. A very well kind of documented and formal hierarchical ranking of wrestlers, in the sport, and I think there's typically between about 550 650 professional sumo wrestlers at any given time who are in this ranking system. So I think what we should look at now, we touched on it briefly earlier. What is a sumo match, or a bout? The rules are simple: push the guy out of the ring, or get any part of his body to hit the ground within the ring before you do yourself.
Okay. Is there any sort of time limit to that as well? There
is a time limit on each bout. So you would have 4 minutes to engage in the fight at first. If there's no winner at the end of the 4 minutes, you take a break. You come back for another 4 minutes thereafter. And if nobody has been declared the winner at the end of that total 8 minutes of wrestling. It would be declared a draw.
Okay.
But these are enormously uncommon.
Okay.
I think the last professional draw was in the mid-1970s.
Okay.
So they really don't happen often whatsoever. The start of a sumo match, there would be a few kind of rituals that people undertake. That includes kind of clapping your hands, which is supposedly to get the attention of the gods.
Okay.
They stomp their feet on the ring, well, kind of in within the ring, and that's to kind of stomp out the evil spirits if they were there, because it's meant to be like kind of like a holy and let's not clean, but
pious event.
A pious event, very good. And then what they do as well is at the start of every bout you'll see them throwing handfuls of salt onto the ring, which is it's called a doyo. So they'll throw salt onto the doyo, and that's again to purify the ring, the space in which they're going to be having their wrestling match. There are there are exactly 82 formal winning techniques, or techniques you might use within a sumo match.
Okay.
They seem to me to be very
sort of
logical,
ad hoc.
Very logical, very logical techniques. So a push on the shoulder will have a specific name.
Yeah.
And if you push somebody so hard on the shoulder that they fell over, you would say, "Oh, they won with this technique." Okay. But it's not. It doesn't seem to me specifically that you have to use one of those 82 techniques to win, or you have to be within those 82. It just seems like they've named everything within the rules.
They've just named the sort of natural things that would happen.
Exactly. Exactly right.
And after 1,000 years of doing this, they've worked out what the efficient ways of doing it are.
Exactly. They've narrowed it down to 82 and disallowed the rest of the moves, anything that you could come up with. So those 82 winning techniques each have a name, and pretty formal. So those techniques are quite well used within the kind of terminology. Let's say in the commentary and the reporting.
Read a news report saying that wrestler A beat wrestler B using move number 63.
Correct. There are some interesting maneuvers, which kind of took me by surprise.
Okay.
A little bit. Including things which are legal, which I did not think they surprised me that they were legal. Pulling an opponent down by the neck or the arm.
The arm seems fine. Neck
seems fine. The inclusion of the neck, I mean, that would be that has been specifically outlawed in a game like rugby.
Yeah, well...
You don't want to ever be applying pressure through someone's neck.
Certainly not front of the neck. No. Back of the neck, I could maybe imagine pushing someone.
But I mean, in this instance, it would probably be hooking your hand around the neck and dragging them down.
That is fair.
It doesn't seem all that safe. Slapping someone in the face, totally okay. It just seems a bit disrespectful.
It does seem just, especially for a sport built on all these
Yeah.
sort of respectful rituals and everything.
Yeah. You can grab your opponent's throat.
Oh, okay. So
Which, yeah, I again would not have really thought is 100% legal. And at the start of every match, they kind of face off, and at the face off, the referee of the bout will wait until there's kind of like a meeting of the minds. So when the referee deems that okay, both these people are now ready to engage in the match, he will say, okay, off we go, start the bout. And then typically what happens is that the two sumo wrestlers just go to basically charge at each other, and there's one almighty big impact. And what is allowed, but is quite a controversial move, is to kind of sidestep that initial charge.
Okay. Would that be to sort of try get the guy to waste his momentum and go all the way out the ring on the other side, or just to?
It's so controversial that I think you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't necessarily. You wouldn't do it tactically. You would usually do it if you were trying to nurse an injury.
Okay.
Like if you had a bad knee and you knew that this massive impact is just going to really put you in a bad way, you might then do it. But it's considered quite. It's very frowned upon because
it's like asking for an uncontested scrum.
Yeah, exactly. You're declining
the challenge.
The challenge, the physicality of it, which is what it is all about. So, yeah, controversial, but it is
legal.
But still legal move. I mentioned that there are 6 tournaments a year.
Yep.
These are called the Grand Sumo tournaments, or Honbasho.
And do they have? Is there like a defined season, or is it throughout the year?
They happen throughout the year, every second month.
Okay.
On the odd months, so Jan, March, May. You can do the maths, or use your knuckles to figure it out. But yeah, they pretty much go throughout the year, and it's very much a case of the entire professional
body of sumo
wrestlers competes at each tournament. So unless you're injured and you might choose to not compete, you would be there. And these kind of the groups of sumos, they train in a stable, and they're housed and live together in what is called a stable. It's called a heya, and they would travel all together to these events. They are kind of scattered around the country, but I believe that about 3 of the Honbasho are in Tokyo, where most of the sumo stables are based out of.
Okay.
So in that case, not too much moving to do.
Yeah.
Moving around. I think I mentioned earlier there's a hierarchy, a ranking of the sumo wrestlers within the professional body.
Yeah, is that just like 1 to 100, everyone's got a number, or is it broken down into sort of leagues, let's say?
You could rank everyone from 1 to 600.
Okay.
That is possible. That is how the rankings are set up. But within the 1 to 600, there are divisions of wrestlers which are separated, so that you are more often and you compete within your division. And if you perform well in your division, you would get promoted up into the next one, and then that's how you ascend to the top ranks of sumo.
Okay, so it's maybe similar to football clubs in the Premier League or Championship, let's say, being promoted to the Premier League.
Yeah.
So even though they're sort of third in their division, they're actually 23rd overall because they're 20 teams in the division above them. They eventually get promoted, can compete against those teams, and can rise up potentially to the league above that.
Yes.
Although Premier League, there's no league above that.
Yeah, exactly right. So there are 6 divisions.
Okay.
The top 2 divisions are considered the professional leagues.
Okay.
So these are the leagues. These are the top sumo wrestlers, and these are the guys who are actually making decent money.
That's where you've made it.
Yeah, that's when you're considering it very much to be like your livelihood.
Yeah.
And those people competing within those 2 divisions are very well respected within Japan. So the top division 1, is called the Makuchi,
Okay.
And then the second division is called the Juryo. And you might describe any wrestler in that division would say they are a Juryo wrestler. That is their rank within the system. And below that, divisions 3 to 6 is also a name for each of those divisions, and for instance, division 4 is called Sandanme. That person is a Sandanme wrestler. Then the way to ascend or to be promoted from any division for the general part is by having a winning record in one of these Honbasho, one of the 6 tournaments that happen a year. And a winning record is basically more wins than losses in your bouts. So divisions 1 through and 2 will compete every day at a Honbasho, and the Honbasho lasts 15 days. So you have 15 bouts in the 15 days, and the divisions 3 to 6 would only have 7 bouts in a tournament. So
every other day.
Every other day. So you have a little bit more time to rest. It's also because those matches are far greater in number, because the bulk of the professional wrestlers are from divisions 3 down.
Yes.
I think that there are...
And they're probably the big ones are the ones that are bringing the crowd in.
Yeah. I'm trying to do some quick maths here. There's probably about 68 to 70 people, the wrestlers in the top 2 divisions.
Okay.
And then in the divisions 3 to 6, there's another 500 plus.
Yeah.
So there's far more matches to be fought, and they're not as well supported.
Yeah.
So to ascend the ranks, you need a winning record in your division. If you were very lowly ranked in your division and you have a winning record, you might just be You might just be moved up the ranking within your division.
Especially if it's a narrow winning record. If you're winning 4 and losing 3,
win 4, lose 3, you might just ascend the ranking within your division. But if you win 7-0, you're going up.
Okay, and I imagine the reverse is true. If you have a losing record, you're going down unless it's very narrow and you were quite high up in your division anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it is a zero-sum game for the most part, because draws are so irregular.
Yeah.
So you must either win or lose. So there are obviously people who have losing records who stay in the division, and winning records who also stay in the division. But for the most part, if you have 2 winning records in a row, you would have been promoted up to the next one. So the bottom 3 divisions are quite fluid in that respect.
And does that sort of affect your reputation, your pay within the Heias?
Yes, it definitely does. So you will of course know about the richest match in football.
Yes, the championship final.
Yeah, maybe give us a bit of insight to that.
So that is the top 2 teams in the championship are promoted each season, and then they have
the championship being the second division of English football.
Of English football, yeah. Then they will sort of have a semi-finals and then a final to see who the third team to be promoted is. And the fact, it's ironic because it could be the 5th and 6th best team, but it's the richest match in football because the benefits of playing in the Premier League are so huge. It's worth about £100 million extra for the club that wins that game. So even though they don't receive it as prize money immediately, the broadcasting revenue, the sponsorship revenue adds up to it being the most consequential match in the football year, and it's normally fought between the 23rd and 24th best teams in the country.
A lovely quirk of the English Football League. So Sumo, in a sense, has a similar kind of cut-off point, a point where it is so beneficial to you to be promoted, and that's the cut-off between Division 2 and 3. Okay. So I mentioned that the 1 and 2 is probably the top 70 wrestlers. And
to become a Juryo.
To become a Juryo, exactly. So as a point of reference, all of these wrestlers are paid fixed salaries. Okay. It doesn't matter what Heya you're a part of, and the salaries are paid by, I think they're paid by the Japan Sumo Association, or Japan Sumo gives a grant fund to the Heya who distributes it to the. But it doesn't detriment to Heya to have wrestlers promoted.
Okay.
So that's what makes me think it comes from It comes from Japan.
From the Sumo Association.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a fixed salary that gets paid to everyone, and it's purely based on what division you're in. So if you're in Division 3, whether you're the top rank guy in Division 3 or the lowest rank guy in Division 3, you're earning the same salary.
Okay.
There's some intricacies to that. You do actually get like a fixed increase on your salary every month for every win you ever get.
Okay.
So people will earn slightly variable amounts. But the cutoff, being promoted from Division 3 to Division 2, which is why I likened it to the richest game of football, you would move from earning $850 per month in Division 3. And I remember when you in your hair, your housing, your food, everything is paid for, your clothing. So this is basically disposable income.
Yes.
Without you needing to have any of those other kind of normal fixed costs. You go from earning $850 per month, US dollars per month in Division 3. If you get promoted to Juryo, you get $13,000 a month.
Yo, that is a big jump.
Yeah. So, and from there on up, as you go into the first division, that's a jump up to $20,000.
Yeah.
So a lot, significantly more, but not even close to the same kind of jump.
No, that's nearly 20 times from
Yeah.
from Division 3 to Division 2.
Yeah. And on the other end of the scale, the guys in Division 6 are earning $400 a month. So from Division 6 to Division 3,
it's double.
it might take you
then
years
it's
to be
suddenly
promoted
20.
through there, and you're only earning $450 more a month for years worth of progression through the ranks. But to get to Division 2, that's when you start earning the big bucks.
Okay, and then conversely, if someone's slipping down the ranks, can they sort of be kicked out of a hair? If they, I don't know, they've lost too many games, they become an outcast of a hair.
Music jokes. You might get kicked out of a hair.
Yeah.
We'll speak a little bit later about kind of life in the hair.
Okay.
But my understanding of it is that you would never actually be properly kicked out. You would choose to leave because you've realized sumo is not going to work for you.
Yes.
And you'll go find...
You're not going to make Division 2 ever, so
No,
you don't want to live on $400
exactly.
to $800 a month.
Exactly. You need to find something else to be your kind of profession.
Okay.
So you might that might be the case. The only position from which you can't get demoted is the top rank in sumo, which is called yokozuna. This is reserved for probably the best 1, 2, or 3 sumo wrestlers in professional sumo at any given time.
Okay, and it's permanent.
And it's permanent.
Okay.
Once you become a yokozuna, you can't lose your ranking. You retire from the sport as yokozuna. If your performances drastically drop off and you kind of forget how to wrestle, the Japan Sumo would give you your retirement papers.
Yeah, I suppose
they wouldn't. They don't demote you. It will be the end of your career. So it's not a poison chalice to be promoted. I mean, you want to be yokozuna.
Yes,
they are the representatives in Japanese society of sumo.
They're almost maybe the representation of the gods.
Perhaps, yeah. So that's the only position you can't get demoted from. To become a yokozuna is quite a process.
Okay.
So I said you need to typically have a winning record to be promoted between the ranks.
Yes.
Of sumo. Once you're in the top division, there's obviously nowhere to be promoted to.
Yes.
And these guys are all very good wrestlers. So there are names that have been given to kind of sub rankings or titles within the first division. Ozeki being the second highest one underneath yokozuna.
Okay,
so you need to progress your way up through those rankings, those kind of sub rankings in the top division until you get to Ozeki. To become an Ozeki, there's a specific criteria you need to meet. In your last 3 Honbasho, which are the major tournaments, you need to have recorded at least 33 wins.
Okay, so that's 11 and 4 on
11
average.
and 4 against the top wrestlers. Yeah. Okay, so that is in and of itself is an achievement to become Ozeki. And then to be promoted from Ozeki to Yokozuna, you need to have won 2 consecutive tournaments. And the winner of any one tournament is the person with the best winning record. So obviously, if you win 15-0,
You've won.
you've won. But often the winner might be 14-1, maybe 13-2.
Okay.
And what they'll try to do is schedule the matches as such that if you have two people who are on track for 13-2 records, they meet each other as like a tie break.
Okay.
And if two people do finish on the same winning record, as far as it relates to determining the winner of the tournament, they will have a playoff bout.
Okay.
So a winner takes all bout to declare the winner of it. A strange quirk of these sumo tournaments is that there are between 32 34 people in this top division, the Mukuchi, and you only have 15 bouts. So you obviously don't fight everybody.
Yes.
And it is possible that one person's route
Is tougher than another's.
Yes,
Yeah.
is tougher than another's. In the top division, they organize their matches. Typically, the early matches in a schedule will be the highest ranked guys against the lowest ranked guys.
Okay.
In order to ensure that towards the end of the tournament, you have the better fighters, the better wrestlers fighting against each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a knockout tournament, as any seeding.
It's a bit of seeding, yeah.
Wimbledon seeding, you know.
You don't
the
want
same applies.
Nadal versus Federer in round one of
Exactly,
Wimbledon.
exactly. And then, but that contrasts to other divisions where you usually fight in the early rounds to people closest to you.
Okay.
Which makes it very difficult to be promoted out of them, because if you're at the top of any one of the divisions, you're fighting against the best guys in those divisions more than you're fighting against the lower guys in the divisions, which is why it's not so easy to actually to make promotion from the lower ranks. So as I mentioned, not everybody fights the same wrestlers in any one honbasho, because there are more wrestlers than you have bouts in each tournament.
Okay.
The one hard and fast rule for people you may not fight against are people within your own heya, the stable. So basically, your band of brothers that you train and wrestle with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I imagine it would be a conflict of interest at some points if you are fighting against someone who needs a win to be promoted. You know that they're gonna earn another $200,000, or not $200,000, sorry. Or if they're going from Division 3 to Division 2, they're going to earn another $15,000 a month. So you're not going to want to get in someone's way there.
They want to avoid that conflict of interest where one person might deliberately lose a match for whatever reason, if it might benefit a guy he knows really well. And the other side of it is they just don't, the bond that a lot of these wrestlers form within their heyas is a brotherly, familial bond.
Yeah, they are almost teammates.
Yeah, and they don't want to ever create a situation where you lose the harmony within the heya, because these guys are actually now competitors against one another.
Okay, one or two questions just related to that. So if you had a few guys, I imagine it would be quite rare, but a few guys that were really high ranked in the same heya, would that cause, I suppose that would cause a little bit of problems, because then they're not fighting highly ranked guys. If you have got number, say, 1, 3, and 5, they're only fighting 2 and 4.
Yeah,
and
that has actually been a problem. I think it might have been around the early 2000s. There was one heya in particular which had a Yokozuna and maybe 2 Ozeki. And because they were never allowed to fight against each other, they were always fighting. And let's say they were ranked 1, 3, and 5, like you suggested. They would only ever fight ranks 2 and 4, and then people below them, as opposed to someone who's ranked 2 second would have to play 1, 3, and 5. Yeah. So he would end up fighting all of them. And what would often be the case then is once one of the guys in that heya had beaten rank 2,
the best guy, and not in the heya,
then they know, it's game on. We can win between one of the three of us. Can now win this tournament.
Okay.
The only exception to that rule is in the case where 2 wrestlers finish on the same winning record, in order to determine the winner of a division or of the overall Honbasho in the top division, then you can fight a wrestler from your own hair.
Okay,
because there can only be one winner at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
then secondly, it's the Yokozuna. You said so they can be multiple Yokozuna, huh?
Yeah.
So would they fight each other regularly, or
yeah?
There's no reason not to.
There's no reason not to.
Okay.
No, they 100% would. And as I said, in terms of how they seed the wrestlers in the top division, you would often find towards days 13, 14, 15 of the tournament, you have your top competitors against each other. Okay. And that's when, if there are multiple Yokozuna, they would be facing off there, or the Yokozuna against the Ozeki.
Okay.
It's kind of, you would find it more often, those kind of matchups towards the end of the tournament.
Okay.
One other thing to mention about the Yokozuna, in terms of being promoted from Ozeki to Yokozuna, is that it's not only a sporting criteria. So I mentioned that you would need to win 2 Honbasho consecutively in order to make promotion. Once you've done that, your promotion gets considered by, I think it's called like the Yokozuna Council or something like that. And the consideration, there's little consideration to be done in terms of the sporting achievement, because you have won the 2 you've won the 2 tournaments in a row. Yeah. However, there's also a requirement that any person promoted should have the dignity of a Yokozuna.
Okay.
And the dignity aspect of it is very, in fact, it's not really defined, but what it comes down to is kind of like a devotion to the sport of sumo, a good sense of the magnitude and responsibility of the promotion to Yokozuna, and understanding the role that you will play as Yokozuna in kind of like in Japanese culture and society.
Because you spoke about it very much like a figurehead role of
they would be the representatives. So there have been a couple of times in the last, let's say 20 years, that there have been a few scandals that that sumo was embroiled in, and the representative, the spokesperson for the wrestlers in those situations is the Yokozuna.
Okay.
So it's a heavy position, especially if you're a Yokozuna by yourself and you don't have other Yokozuna around you to support you. So that dignity element is quite an important part of it. It would be, as far as I know, in my reading, I couldn't find any instances when someone was not given promotion because of the dignity side of it. I think it's something that is just becomes deeply ingrained in you.
As a sumo wrestler, you learn I suppose cricket, the spirit of the game, the sort of like the unwritten rules of the sport.
And I mean, you see that side of the sport, particularly at the end of the bouts, when somebody wins a bout, it is incredibly uncommon to see a sumo wrestler celebrate. Yeah. Even a fist bump, a smile, hands in the air, it doesn't happen. The bout is over, they bow, and they walk off. That's it. So if they were particularly self-interested or kind of getting very proud of themselves for winning these matches, that would be something that reflects poorly on their dignity.
Okay.
And indeed, that kind of maneuver, like I said, stepping away from someone at that initial charge, that's something that would be very unbefitting of a Yokozuna.
Okay.
So when you're ascending the ranks, when you're getting quite close to the tops of it, there's a thing called Yokozuna Sumo. So this is engaging in the sport in a way that is most respectful and most dignifying. So in that case, Yokozuna Sumo, slapping in the face, which we said is legal, but surprisingly legal, that would be frowned upon. For Yokozuna to be slapping people rapidly and regularly is unbefitting of them.
So almost hold themselves to a higher standard than the professional.
Exactly that, yeah. Which I think is a good segue to speak about a specific Yokozuna. Okay. In the history of sumo, which, as we said, is very long, but professional modern sumo, as we know it, became formalized around the 1930s, late 1920s.
Okay.
In the history of sumo, there have been, I think, 74 or 75 yokozuna only.
That few.
That few.
That's
a lot more recently than before, as there hasn't always been a strict criteria to make yokozuna, so oftentimes it was
until the next yokozuna, the previous
exactly
yokozuna retired.
Exactly. But now that there is a fixed criteria, once you meet it, people get promoted. So there seem to me to be more yokozuna now than there have been, let's say, in the past. When I say now, I mean within the last 30 years.
Yes.
That said, it is still an achievement, a massive achievement to get there, and it's very few and far between. Of all the wrestlers who participate in the sport, very few of them actually ever make it to this, if there's only been 75 or so ever. The almost undisputed greatest of all time yokozuna was a chap called Hakuyo Sho. And his stats are frankly phenomenal. When you in pretty much every aspect of measurable domination of a sport, he is just miles above the rest.
Bradman-esque.
Bradman-esque, yes. I would say Tiger Woods-esque. He is the Tiger Woods of sumo. It is that level of dominance. He's the longest serving sumo ever. He was promoted. I think, to yokozuna at the age of 22.
That seems
which
very
is
young
phenomenally young. And he served as yokozuna for 14 years. So he was a yokozuna, and I think he only joined the sport when he was about 16. So he was a yokozuna almost twice as long as he was not a yokozuna.
Yeah.
He has the most. Yusho, which is the overall championship wins of these things. So if you win the first division, that's Yusho.
Okay.
He has the most wins in history, 45 of them. He won at one point 7 of them on the trot.
Jeez. And I was skeptical. People
and
could
2
win 2
is
in
what
a
gets
row.
you promoted to yokozuna. He won 7 on the trot. He's got the record for the most undefeated Yusho in history. So he has 16 instances of going 15-0 in these tournaments, and he's won 1,187 career bouts at a win percentage in the top division of about 84.6%. So he's truly unmatched. He took a little bit of criticism because he had quite an aggressive wrestling style, and he engaged in kind of the face slapping and whatnot. But that's because that was part of what made him good.
Yes.
And for him then to kind of cut that out when you become yokozuna is very difficult, because then you start losing and then they retire you. So it's a bit of a catch-22. So he had a few instances of behaviors that maybe were a little bit frowned upon, but he was subject to potentially a bit more scrutiny than most, based on the fact that he was not Japanese, but Mongolian.
Oh, okay.
He comes from a famous Mongolian wrestling family, and his father was a free wrestler, and in fact went to the 1968 Olympics.
Okay, so I was about to ask what sort of era this was. So this would have been like 90s, if his father was at the 68 Olympics.
Hakuyo.
Yeah.
Hakuyo. No, well, Hakuyo became yokozuna in 2007.
Oh, okay.
So until 2021,
so quite recently.
Retired 2021. Yeah. His father was an Olympic wrestler and won Mongolia's first ever Olympic medal. He won silver in Mexico in free wrestling, freestyle wrestling. Sorry. So I mentioned that he's Mongolian.
Yes.
There is a strong recent history of Mongolians in the sport of sumo. I think that 7 of the 9 most recent yokozuna to be promoted were foreign born wrestlers, so not Japanese. Of those 7, 1 was from America. There's a bit of a history of people from Hawaii participating in sumo.
Okay.
They
That's
had
interesting.
the build for it.
Yeah.
So one of the 7 was from America, and the other 6 were Mongolian.
Okay.
So there was a concerted recruitment drive that occurred kind of in the early 90s, where people started going over to Mongolia, picking up promising, because they have a strong wrestling culture there.
And it's close enough as well.
And it's close enough, and similar enough kind of culturally as well. So they would... The recruitment drive kind of started them going over there to pick up promising wrestlers, and sumo offers a much higher ceiling in terms of earnings and kind of what you can achieve in wrestling than if you had stayed in Mongolia.
Yeah.
So for these young boys, they often go off when they're about 16. They would be taken over from Mongolia, join one of the heias in Japan. And embark on this process of becoming sumo wrestlers. And they, for no very clear reason, maybe it has to do with their wrestling upbringing, or perhaps the style of wrestling that they engage in when they're learning to wrestle. But they have been pretty dominant in the world of sumo, to the extent that the Japan Sumo Association has taken steps to limit the number of foreign-born wrestlers that are participating in the professional realm of sumo.
Okay, that's very interesting.
One of their initial what's the word?
Rules.
One of their initial
Okay.
One of their initial ploys to kind of curb the dominance of foreign-born wrestlers in sumo was to limit the number to a hard and fast 40 foreign-born wrestlers within the total hierarchy of sumo.
Of 600 or so.
And at that point, they limited as well. There was a 2-person limit per stable.
Okay, per heia.
Per heia. They've subsequently done away with the hard and fast limit of 40, but they've limited it to 1 foreign-born wrestler per stable.
Okay.
Some people say this can be viewed from 2 lenses. The one is that, well, what they're doing there is actually trying to ensure that Japanese wrestlers stand a better chance of progressing through the ranks and becoming the yokozuna or the highly ranked wrestlers, because they would want Japanese wrestlers to be there. And some people have kind of taken the view that that's maybe a little xenophobic.
Mm-hmm.
But the other perspective of it is that it's preserving the culture of sumo, because you might have an instance where if they didn't curb this, there might be an instance where you have 12 very promising Hawaiian chaps who get recruited by one stable, and they come in and they form a clique within the stable.
Yeah.
They never really adjust to the Japanese culture, customs, way of life, to the extent that it then impacts the heia. So they're trying to preserve the culture and the history of...
Yeah, and I think, it's so culturally important to Japan that, for it to become a foreign-dominated sport, I think would be a bit of a hit on their pride.
It would. It is quintessentially Japanese.
Yeah.
So they need to, I guess, preserve that element of it. The cultural side, the lifestyle side that needs preserving in this case, is worth looking at. Life within the heia is very simple. Depending on your ranking within sumo, you're afforded certain privileges. People lower down the rankings do more chores. It's very similar to kind of our upbringing in kind of South African boarding schools,
school.
like seniors and juniors in a boarding house where
make you tea or
exactly
make your
or
bed.
They'll make your bed for you. They'll clean up after you. They'll do your washing, that kind of stuff. And
you sort of pay your dues by doing that at the beginning. And
exactly right. And then you earn your right to have those things done with you to make your life a bit easier, so you can focus more on your wrestling and kind of ascending the ranks. One thing that we would be horribly amiss to not talk about is the food.
Oh, of course.
That the sumo wrestlers eat. They have one particular meal, which is infamously sumo.
Okay.
It's called chanko nabe.
Oh, okay. Big fan of chunk being the first
Absolutely.
syllable there.
Chunkonabe is effectively a stew, but it is massively high in protein and massively high in calories.
Okay.
It is, strangely enough, an incredibly healthy meal. It is packed with often a variety of meats and loads of vegetables, cooked in some kind of broth of sorts, and eaten in moderation would typically represent a pretty balanced meal, that along with some rice. You would be covering most of your food triangle, as we know it. But these guys intentionally eat an unbelievable amount of it with the purpose of putting on weight. They make sure that it goes down easily by accompanying it with beer at most of their meals, and they've kind of developed their lifestyle over the years. The lifestyle has developed in a way which is made to intentionally slow down a human's metabolism to put on weight.
Okay.
So examples of that include they wake up in the morning, they don't eat, they go straight into exercising. They exercise for the better part of 4 hours or so, after which they go and have a bath, warm their bodies up even further. Then they go sit down to eat their lunches. They eat an enormous amount of food over an hour, 2 hours, washing it down with some beer, and then they go to sleep. So that entire kind of morning, afternoon schedule is intentionally designed to slow down the metabolism, make sure they're putting on weight. But the fact that they are doing 4 hours of exercise in the morning and that they are having these high protein meals most of the times, these guys are actually unbelievably strong and muscular. It's just often the case that they have a layer of fat around them that makes them look incredibly unhealthy. But in actual fact, there are cases where there's some wrestlers like Hakuyo, I'll show you a photo of him later, the goat of sumo. He's a very muscular looking dude. He's not really what you imagine, what you picture a sumo wrestler to be. So you can eat these things, you can live this lifestyle and actually be quite healthy.
Yeah, well, I've seen a report.
In pretty good shape.
Yeah, I've seen a report recently that there's a lot of sporting benefit to having a little bit more fat than you would maybe think for an athlete's
is it really?
performance. Yeah, so I think one of the main people they spoke about was Patrick Mahomes, and he's not like cut, but he's obviously the peak athlete. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't know too much about American football.
Yeah,
but I think there was another example saying that a lot of Premier League players have too little fat.
Oh wow!
They would be healthier if they had 1 or 2% more body fat.
Okay.
And it's a lot of time people focus too much on the leanness, and performance could actually be enhanced.
Enhanced by being less lean.
Yes, that's not the case for me. I could lose a little bit of fat, probably.
Things in moderation.
Yeah, but professional athletes apparently there sometimes could do with putting on a little bit more fat.
Ah, okay. This lifestyle that they have, intentionally slowing down the metabolism, putting on weight, it does have side effects later on in life.
Yeah, of course.
The average lifespan of a sumo wrestler is typically between 60 and 65 years, which
short.
is about 15 to 20 years less than the average male in Japan.
Yeah.
So you do pay the price for it later on in life, unfortunately. While we're talking about the physical build of these wrestlers, one interesting thing that I've come across is that Japan Sumo used to have a minimum height and weight criteria to join the ranks of sumo at any given point in time. It's not as enormous as you would think, but you must bear in mind that it's typically 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds joining the ranks, so there can't be a requirement to be 130 kgs. No. But the previous height requirement was 5 foot 8 inches, which is 173 centimeters.
Okay.
Meaning I've just cut it.
Oh, you just made it worse. Well done.
However, there was one poor soul. His name was Takeji Harada. All he wanted to be in life was a sumo wrestler. Unfortunately, at 6 times of asking, he failed the height requirement, which I'm not sure how you do, because you know how tall you are before you go to be tested.
Yeah, but if you're 16, you might be growing.
Yeah, but on the day that you go to a test, you know how tall
that's
you are.
Fair.
Surely your mum measures you.
Yeah.
And says, sorry, my boy, you're not tall enough yet. Anyway, this guy realized he had stopped growing. and all he wanted to do was become a sumo wrestler. He underwent 4 separate cosmetic surgeries where what he did was just added silicone implants onto the top of his head to extend his head by 15 centimeters, such that he now met the minimum height requirement and could become a sumo wrestler.
So was this just like a horn, or was it, did you just have a 15 centimeter long forehead?
It was like a thick horn, like a saucer. Imagine like a saucer size built up off the back, like the crown of your head. Particularly weird. He was never a very successful sumo wrestler, but this did bring the JSA's requirements under a bit of scrutiny, and they've subsequently done away with it, and it is just more kind of a physical assessment, a minimum level of athleticism and strength that takes place now, as opposed to there being
hard
and
fast.
You must be 173 on this date to make it into the association.
Well, it's one way to get rid of a silly rule is to make it look even more silly.
And it was made to look silly, let me tell you. I guess in closing, maybe one thing just to talk about is sumo on the global stage.
Yep.
Obviously, everything we've spoken about today is very Japan-focused, and sumo is essentially Japanese. But there have been some efforts to spread the sport. There is a separate association that organizes sumo tournaments, and that is a purely amateur sport. So outside of Japan, sumo only exists in its amateur form, and whereas in Japan it's only males are allowed to participate.
Yep.
Within the World Sumo arena, the amateur side of it, there are female competitions as well.
Okay.
Another key distinction is that sumo famously is not divided on weight class within the ranks. It doesn't matter if you weigh 100 kgs or 160 kgs, how tall you are. You might meet someone who massively outsizes you in tournament, and that's just the way it works.
I imagine there's certain fighting styles that suit smaller guys going up against bigger guys.
Of course,
sort of a David versus Goliath style.
Of course, they are. The agility of the smaller guys often helps. They use a lot more kind of foot wrapping techniques to trip the big guys and use the big guys' momentum to kind of take themselves down. That being said, there is a benefit.
Yeah.
There is an overwhelming benefit to being big, strong, and heavy.
There's a reason our perception is...
Which is why sumo wrestlers are big, strong, and heavy normally. But you can cut it as a smaller sumo wrestler. So the contrast is that on the amateur level worldwide, they have indeed split on weight class, as with most other
wrestling. Combat
sports. However, there is still an open division where anyone who wants to compete and can compete.
Okay.
But I was looking through kind of the world champions in the amateur sport, and oftentimes the heavyweight world champion is also the open world champion, because being big, strong, and heavy makes a difference. I've covered most of what I want to share with you. Is there anything that maybe you think we haven't covered? Or any questions that I've left unanswered?
I think, I suppose with Japan being, or the sport being so linked to Japan, both, I think, maybe Japan's sporting identity is tied into sumo, and sumo's obviously identity is tied into the Japanese nation, the Japanese nationality. In terms of globalization, they don't want to become an Olympic sport, I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a sport that has globalized enough yet.
Yeah, and doesn't seem to want to globalize that
and doesn't
much.
Want to globalize. Yeah. So I don't see it ever becoming an Olympic sport. I think they might have been one of the exhibition sports.
Oh, at the recent
Tokyo
ones,
Olympics. There would have been an element of that. That being said, Japan Sumo itself is looking globally a little bit more than before. In October this year, they're hosting their first ever official Japan Sumo Association event outside of Japan.
Okay.
It's happening in London. It's a tournament, but it's a truncated tournament, I think, over about 5 days.
Okay.
But the entire top 2 divisions of sumo are coming to it. So it is the real McCoy sumo, top guys in sumo as an exhibition. And there will be prize money on the line, but it's not one of the 6 Honbasho for the year.
It doesn't
count
as...
into anyone's professional records. But they are making an effort to kind of share the sport with maybe a more globalized audience without maybe trying to make it global.
Yes.
They're trying to increase the exposure without maybe increasing the participation of it at a professional level, I would say. Yeah. In closing, one last little question I'd like to pose to you. We spoke a bit about the chonko nabe, the food that the sumo wrestlers eat on a daily basis. I said that it is stacked with proteins. A lot of different meats will be thrown in there. It might be lamb, chicken, beef, pork, whatever. They throw it all in there, have the best time. Can you think of any reason why at any one of the 6 Honbasho during the year, they only serve chicken chonko nabe?
Oh,
they don't put other meats into it.
Maybe just because it's cheap. I think chicken's often cheaper than other meats.
No, that's not true. So basically it is a good omen to only include chicken in your chonko nabe during competitions because chicken exists on 2 feet.
Oh, very clever.
As opposed to all the other animals that they might include in the chonko nabe are on 4 feet or legs. And if you're on your 4s in a tournament, you've lost.
Yeah.
So they want to create good omens by being on your 2 feet. You only eat chicken chonko nabe during competition.
Oh, fantastic.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks so much, Joe.
Well, thank you very much, Wes. I think I'm certainly leaving better educated about sumo.
Great.
And I hope the listeners are too.
Super. Until next time. Cheers.
Cheers.